video, the prayer, the protection for children, and I realized, you know what, I think part of it, I need to process my feelings and get them out, and also I have some things to say. And most specifically, about integrity. And what I'm thinking about too is, in fact, I think my Rudy Bug is the only one that usually his first response would be immature, but you have that when you have reactive attachment disorder and you're a little regressed for emotionally because of your past traumas. But he would always come back to it and then go, you know what, you're right. And I really shouldn't have reacted that way to it. I was just caught off guard because I was expecting like a pointless argument like everybody else in my life was giving me. So I'm going to include him with everyone else in this one because there are at least 20 pirates between his family and mine and friends and stuff. And you know the thing that never ceases to amaze me is they'll all try to, like, I'll say, hey, we need to be a healthy example and have at least decent, healthy boundaries around all the kids. Not just mine, all kids. And they'll try to test it to see if I'm just using that, like, to try to get something, and I'm not. I really mean that. Like, whether I get what I want or not, I want us to be healthy examples and have good boundaries around the kids, period. Because the kids should be put first, because that's the way a healthy parent does shit, right? But once they find that I'm genuinely like, I may want other things. I may also be human. I may have some jealousies. I may be incorrect sometimes. I'm not incorrect about that, however. And so they find there's nothing in there. So then their next trick is to suggest that I'm tricking people, that I really have some ulterior motive, as if that's an excuse for not being a better parent. Like, even if I did, why are you selfishly choosing not to be a better parent, anyways? I've even seen this from the good guys, the people who are much more aware of what they do and like they do care about their children, and their responses will often be, but I was busy. I don't have time. I don't have support. I have mental health problems. And it's like, all I'm asking you is not to shit talk your children, and that when you're around them that you have healthy boundaries, as in you don't bring a bunch of people up into their lives that you have no idea or intention if they're going to stay. You have healthy, you don't get sexual in front of them. You don't do things that are inappropriate around them. You don't make them go and do things simply because your partner is upset. You don't make them get out of the way because you're uncomfortable. You don't tell them they're annoying or they make bad comments or they're dramatic. You don't blame them for your bad decisions. And you never, never, ever make them feel like they were one of your bad decisions or a mistake, or like even if they were an unplanned pregnancy, you're the only one that decides whether or not it was an accident or a surprise. Period. You don't like it? Get the heck off my channel. Because that's the way I feel, and that's how I'm going to fucking talk about it. And, the greatest irony is that so many people, if you're on the pirate side, it's, well, you did something in the past, and my response is always, that doesn't make it acceptable for either of us to do it now. And then the next response will be, oh, what is it? I don't understand your big words. Because, yeah, like, that really shows your mental stability. And then, when that does not work, it's attempting to do the silent treatment, or change the subject, or to ambiguously kind of agree and then not really follow through with it. These are the things that pirates and unstable people typically will do when you try to hold an actual healthy boundary that actually is not selfish and is about children, because they will run from any attempt to actually be accountable for their children or for themselves, because people love using children as their excuse for being shitty people. And the video that I did about a dollar store thing is a great example to me. And because it's not just about the lady in the dollar store. My mother does that too. And so does Rudy's first wife, Sheila, and third wife, Tina. The minute that nobody's looking, do all sorts of bullshit, especially to kids. And when somebody is looking and they say something about it, they blame the kids. That's part of why Tina don't like me, because her first excuse is always the kids. And I go, no, because if it is the kids, if it really is their fault, guess who's responsible for that? You, because you're their mother. Oh gosh, did I say it? Oh my gosh, I did, because it's fucking true, right? That's the way I look at it with my parenting. When I got all the criticism from these pirates that were never going to be accountable for themselves, that's what I did. I looked at myself, and they were quick to point it at me anyways, but I'm actually grateful for that, because I did need to look at myself, and I did do that. And now I get to sit here and say shit like this because I earned those bragging rights. My children will be the first to tell you. So will our therapist. Oh, did I say that? I did say that. Isn't that fucking beautiful? It is. It's important and valuable to do your healing work. Really, really is, right? But love that, but use that later. Oh, did I say that? I did say that. Or maybe it'll be a t-shirt. In any case. Heck, I can remember, too, that I had made a comment one time when Rudy's daughter was little. And all I had said was that it would be healthier for her if she also had some basic chores at our house, because her mom had been doing this thing between gaslighting her and throwing a bunch of shit at her, and then not giving her anything, and then using her phone to torture her with, and her dad to torture her with, and then using her to torture her dad. Like, it was all over the place. And I was trying to figure out, like, I don't know how I can help, but I know what basic structure it is that kids need, and I know that she's not going to like it, but some chores would be good. And we'll do it for our oldest, who at the time was our youngest. He was about 6. And like, we'll do it with both. Now, I have no idea how Rudy communicated that to his first wife. She had divorced him, years before that to get remarried. But like, she freaked out. She freaked out, had a big old fucking hissy fit. And instead of taking that as a moment of, you know what, this is right, I should have some chores for her, and doing this, she created a whole shit ton of chores to beat her kid over the head with, because she felt insecure and inferior at the fact that she was not doing a good job at parenting, and got called out by me, the youngest, and the one who effectively her man left her for before she decided to divorce, because she treated him like shit. My biggest criticism to anybody who's ever said anything about stuff coming to me is like, if you were treating him right, honey, if you were being woman enough with him in the first place, he wouldn't have been going anywhere. And I can even own in the times that he was not right there with me, I'm not saying it's all on women. I'm not at all. No. But I can own that if there are times in a relationship where it gets bad enough to where my partner feels like going outside of the relationship, that I own just as much responsibility for that as my partner. It's never a one-way street. And that's what a lot of pirates like to do with both parenting and relationships, and of course, in their pirating. And even the good people, again, there's always a reason. There's always, oh, my parents did it to me. Or I'm not capable of it. Or life is unfair. I hated that one growing up, and I'm definitely going to righteously go after anybody who uses that one these days. Well, life ain't fair. Yeah, you know what? You should apply that fucking medicine to your own fucking life. If life ain't fair, you should be the one to take the unfairness for your child. And I am the last person to say you should ever spoil a child. But there's a difference between being healthy and good to a child and spoiling a child. Big difference. Big differences. But you can tell if you're unstable or another parent is unstable because they're not capable of that. Makes a big difference. Now, and there's so many times. It's like, really? And my favorite thing is having, like, my own parents and all the family members on my side and my partner's side. These are my children's families, right? I've been advocating that we be good for the kids, that we be good to each other, that we don't see each other as broken, that we do the right thing and would be a good example as much as we're capable of, which is certainly more than we've been showing, right? Their response to that is that I've been trying to get my person back. my Rudy back. And it's like, no, those would look like two very different things. There are actually people in this fucking world who do actually give a shit about kids, but you can tell how unstable they are. That in their minds, they don't know what genuine parental love looks like. And then, of course, should a stable person have the opportunity to show their emotions or to talk about it, their first place to go when you have an appropriate emotional response to such absurdity and instability from people is to try to claim that you're unstable. You're dramatic, or you might want to hurt yourself, or this and that, because that's what they do. That's the only reason they show emotions, is when it's attempting to manipulate somebody. So their first accusation usually is that you don't actually care about the kids, that you're just manipulating, which is your first indication of their own emotional instability, because if that's the only logic that they can find for a parent being a good parent, a friend being a good friend, a lover being a good lover, is that it's a manipulation or a trick, shows you what their motivations are. It's very simple, right? Reminds me of a meme that I saw recently. Was it, if you listen very quietly, people will tell you exactly who they are, right? And it kind of makes me laugh, because it's like so many people in my life, they get in trouble. They get themselves in trouble. Like with CPS, with other people, with cheating, with doing all sorts of stuff. Crime. They get themselves in trouble. And what gets me is like, I should have been the person who told on them when they got caught. I wasn't. I should have been, but I wasn't. And part of the reason that I wasn't is because I knew they'd get themselves in trouble. The other part I own. I was being cowardly and selfish. I wanted to keep a relationship with my person. I wanted to keep it with my family. And part of the reason that I eventually told him to go grow up is I realized until he was willing to release these people that are so unstable, they can't possibly imagine that somebody else could care about children, especially their own children, that it wasn't going to be a stable family. And it kind of makes me laugh, though, because it's like, if everybody saw me as the type of person who did care enough to say something, to do something, to walk alone if must be, to be taken to court and attempted to have me proved unstable, if need be, to let them beat me up if that's what they're going to do, and talk about that too. Like, I've been telling them who I am since the beginning. I have my cowardly sides, I have my shadowy sides, I have my opinions, I have my judgments, and most of them are about people who are shitty to kids, and shitty to adults, and shitty to the inner children of adults. Those are most of my judgments and opinions. And most of the time, even those I will alchemize. I will bring myself back to a compassionate place where I'm like, you know what, I know this is generational. I know they got it from their parents, who got it from their parents, who got it from their parents, and it does zero good to be upset about it, right? It doesn't help anybody. We are much better looking at those same people who clearly feel too broken to ever be better, even for their children, which is like saying, I can't stop drinking alcohol because I'm pregnant, because it was an accident, or life ain't fair. Like, no, you fucking quit drinking. You do it. You do the things. Because the future is more important. It's like the meme where I think it said something. I think it was Lao Tzu. I'm not sure, but it says that, what is it? A person who plants a tree for being shade for future generations is starting to understand what life is about, right? But so many people are more wrapped up in the right now. When am I getting gratified? When do I get that money? We're living paycheck to paycheck. We're doing this. We're doing that. When are you going to make time to be good for your kids? When are you going to make time to play with them for real? When are you going to make time to better yourself so you don't pass on the bullshit your parents gave you to them? When are you going to make time to recognize you're supposed to do better than your parents did, not worse? Or even with relationships. If you get in relationship with someone, especially if that starts out in a place where they were unhappy about the way their former partner treated them, you're supposed to do better. I'm not saying it's a competition. I'm just saying if your relationships are not meant to be an evolving progression of where you have been, what the fuck are you doing? You know what I mean? If you're having children and your intention is not to do better with them than your parents did, it's not to love them and put them first, what the fuck are you doing being a parent? Really, like, literally, like, just lay it out there. What the fuck are you doing? If you're stressed out all the time by the cost that it costs to raise a child in this world, what the fuck are you doing being a parent? This is about your integrity. And yes, that most definitely includes those of you who shit talk your children when you don't think they're listening. Well, I don't care if they're gone out of the house and you know they're not there. You just spoke that fucking energy into the house for them to walk into like a nasty fart. You know, like it's still just as rude. It's still just as fucked up. And it's more about your integrity. Integrity is doing the right thing whether anybody's looking or not. And that includes in your head and in your heart. I don't care if you never speak the words. Whatever you're thinking, oh, they're just an emotional teenager, or they're the naughty one, or oh my gosh, they're always wanting something, needing something. Oh, gee, I wonder why. They're fucking children. Of course they want things. Of course they would like your attention. Of course they want to talk to you. Of course they'd like to get a hug here and there. Of course they'd like to hear that you're proud of them and they'd like, that you appreciate them for who they are. They don't want to hear that you think it's shitty if they want to get a GED. They don't want to hear that you think that they're just unrighteously emotional, and they definitely don't want to see you walking around acting like they're the ones that cause you to need to rule by iron fist, or spend all your time locked away, or oh my gosh, life's so unfair, so I have to work and never fucking be there. That's your bullshit. Your bullshit. I'm just calling it what it is, And if you take a kid out to a store and they throw a fit or they get tired, you need to be better about managing your time. If you walk a kid down an aisle that has candy and junk food and toys and they throw a fit because you don't get them any, guess what? You shouldn't have fucking walked them down that aisle if you didn't intend to get them something. I'm not saying you should teach them that there is no delayed gratification, but what kind of fucking person are you that, one, you would not be smart enough to say, gee, if I take a young child through this aisle before I've taught them delayed gratification and I run them through there and I don't buy them something while I'm taking them on a boring ass fucking grocery trip, they're probably going to throw a fit. Gee, if I take them through the dollar store and I don't intend to buy them some stuff, why wouldn't they throw a fit? They're fucking children. Period. Like, I have no more time or desire to mince words with parents, whether they are pirates, potatoes, or good people, or bad people, or what the fuck ever. It's time to grow beyond this shit. It's messed up. And yes, like, swearing should definitely be curbed around children. Though, you know what? I would take a parent who swears around their child any day over a parent who swears at their child. Because I've fucking seen that a lot too. I might swear around my children, and certainly not as much as I'm doing in these videos, but I might swear around them. They might see these videos. But you know what? I don't swear at them. I don't swear about them to other people either. I never justify going around and being like, oh, well, my kid's just a little shit. But you know how many of you have heard do that? Oh, plenty. Plenty. Not just in Rudy's family, not just in my family, all over. Oh, it's so hard. Well, then, you know what? You need to take a realistic look at yourself and decide if it is so hard for you to be a parent that you gotta lock things up at the house, if it is so hard for you to teach your children how to have self-discipline in healthy ways without making them feel like shit, without demanding they only use one color pencil at a time, without telling them that you think that they're fat, without telling them you think that they're super fucking chubby. If you can't be a parent who could say, you know what, I love everything about you. You know what, let's go learn how to do this chore. It'll be good for you when you're an adult. You'll really like it. Or, hey, what chores do you like right now? I'd like you to do the chores that you like. If you can't be a parent in some form or shape or size of that kind, don't be a fucking parent. Go and look around. Find somebody in your community who could do a legal adoption. who wants to be a good parent, because that's the only thing stopping any of y'all. I don't care if you're the good guys and you got severe mental health, or if you're the bad guys and you feel like life has been so unfair to you. Did I say that? Yes, I did. If you feel that way, then you need to consider that maybe parenting was not for you. If you feel like your children were an accident or a burden or an obligation, you need to consider finding someone who does not feel that way about them as your final act as their parent. That would be the one most beautiful, righteous thing you could fucking do for them if you don't feel like you are going to be a good parent. If you can't control yourself, your mind, your thoughts, and not talk shit about kids in your private space just simply because it gives you a reason to feel like you can fucking complain and still feel like a good person, which by the way it doesn't. If you're bitching about anything, I don't give a fuck if it is children or adults or whatever. If in private you go to people and you're like, yeah, my life is so unfair, but it's because of my partner or my children, they just don't love me, they never behave. Or I love my children, I know that they love me, but they're just not behaving and I keep having to go to the school. My partner doesn't help me with it. My partner's got an ex who is just never going away. Oh, like, all right, Scarlett O'Hara, if that's the way you feel about it, you should reconsider being a parent flat out, because you don't have the integrity to be a parent at that point in time. If you can't find other things to talk about with other people, if you can't find, like, if you can't go to your friends and be like, you know what, I had a good day today. There's a couple tantrums with the kids, but you know what, I confidently handled it by helping call them back to themselves, reminding them that it's okay to have a tantrum here and there. We all do. It's okay to have emotions, doesn't make you crazy, and it's okay to communicate them to me, because I don't mind if my kids are mad at me sometimes, and I would like them to feel comfortable going out into the world and not being totally spun out if somebody gets mad at them. And I want my kids to know that I'm open to feedback, because there are times I'm not going to get it right. You know how many times my parents screwed it up? Do you know how many times your parents screwed it up? And yet they were all in this self-righteous fucking place about, but I'm the parent. I'm the boss. I do it right. Nah, 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 nah. You know how fucking unstable that is? Very. Right? If you're that kind of parent, you're creating instability in your kids. If you can't show your kids that it is safe, healthy, and normal to have moments where you don't know, moments where you make mistakes, moments where you have emotions and you need to apologize, if you're not able to do that, you're not ready to be a fucking parent, and you really need to reconsider that. I don't care if your kids are 2, 10, 18, whatever. If you feel like your children are a burden or were an accident, or you only created them to trap somebody else in and then, gee, found yourself with a whole bunch more work that you didn't expect, you need to consider finding them a family who actually can be stable for them. Even if it hurts you. Even if you're like, but these are my children. You know what? It's not enough. If you don't have the integrity to speak well of them when they're not there, to speak well of them to their faces, to not whisper at everybody else around while you're talking shit about them. If you don't have the integrity for yourself to be a beautiful person in private as well as in front of them, as well in public, you're not fit to be a parent. I'm just fucking saying it. You're not. This is 2021. That old bullshit about corporal punishment and ruling by iron fists and being in some fucking place to where life ain't fair, you're stuck with me. No, you should be the fucking person to do it. I must say, this is an extra emphasis on anybody who is pro-life, okay? I'm pro-choice, but I had two sons. I could have had an abortion. I didn't. And when I had them, I looked at myself and I said, what do I need to change within me to be a good parent for them? And have I done it 100% great all the way? No. No, they'll be the first ones to tell you about the times that mom used to yell all the time, or mom was much more of the drill sergeant. But you know what my favorite thing about that is? They feel safe talking about it. That's the key. They can talk to anybody they want, and I don't get upset because I own my bullshit as a good parent should, because that helps them see how to own their shit. And I just watched my oldest son the other day. He had an interaction with a friend that was challenging and difficult. He got his boundaries broken, and he recognized he broke some boundaries. And I watched my 16-year-old, he's gender fluid, but I'm just going to say he was like, he was a man. He looked at his friend and he said, you know, I acknowledge that I may have stumbled over some boundaries without meaning to, but I really do not appreciate y'all talking about me like that in private in the ways that you were. I would really appreciate it if you would talk to your friend and if this did not happen again. And oh man, I could feel it because I've been in those moments when your voice shakes and you tell the truth anyways and you're respectful and you own your shit too because it's never a one-way street. It's never just one-sided. I was so fucking proud. So fucking proud. And I've seen my 10-year-old do similar shit. And I've had everybody compliment me on my parenting and on my kids. Am I perfect? No. But you know what? I don't try to be perfect. I do not try to pretend that I am sin free because this is a world where that shit does not exist. And if you parent your children in that way, guess what? You don't teach them to be perfect in the ways you never were and were pretending to. You teach them to pretend to be perfect. You teach them to feel like they can never be vulnerable. You teach them to feel like their shadow sides make them a broken, shitty person. So they never express them, they bottle them up, and then they come out at really inappropriate times that really aren't okay, and then they believe the bullshit you fucking trained into them, that you conditioned into them because you had to feel like you were always fucking perfect. Because you could never fucking sit there and actually go, yeah, you know what, that wasn't very nice of me. Is it really that hard? Is it really that hard to go, you know what, it's inappropriate of me to yell at you? There are multiple, many, numerous, a plethora of ways to communicate with you that do not require yelling. And I did that because I was stressed and selfishly going for what felt like the easiest route at the time. I was using trauma responses based on how my parents did it. And I own that I could have at multiple opportunities stopped and found different ways to do that with you. And even though at the time I may not have felt like I had other options, I did. And I see that now. And I do not blame you at all. I don't care if your kid had the worst terrible twos ever. If they did, guess whose fault that is? Yours. Because kids do not naturally have terrible twos or terrible teens. Do you know what has a kid become a terrible 2-year old or a toddler or a terrible teenager, a moody teenager? It's having terrible fucking parents. It's having the terrible twos go on with their parents. I just had to talk about with my own fucking parents because they've got every fucking criticism for me. And you know what? I finally looked at them and I said, you know what? Your opinion does not count for much because you did not protect me. You did not protect me from my alcoholic father, and my alcoholic father, because he was choosing to drink because he was in physical pain, did not protect me either. And I got left with sitters and family members who abused the fuck out of me almost every day. And even more so for me because I would actually stand in for the little kids. I would take the blame. And they loved it with me because I learned not to cry. I learned not to have a response. And oh, they wanted one. It's much like a lot of the pirates right now. You want what? You want me to cry? Right? Including with the fucking people that might come on and be triggered by this. What, you want me to feel bad that you've had a tough life? Sorry, I don't. I have empathy for you because I've been there. And I know a lot of people have been through worse shit than what I went through. But I don't have a space. Like, I have empathy for you. I do not have sympathy for you. Because at this point in time, if you are anything over the age, I'm going to say of 20, I'll give you a little space. If you're anything over the age of 20, especially anything over the age of 25, and you're going to come to me and tell me that you can't be a better parent because of your life circumstances, it's still not the child's fault. And I don't want to fucking hear it. I won't hear it. If you feel broken, you need to do what it takes to feel whole. You need to stop making excuses. You need to stop looking at it. Well, their dad wasn't there. Yeah, that, you know how that's been a story in humanity for so fucking long. There are ways around that. There are ways to help show your children both healthy masculinity and femininity. There are stable ways to have other people in your children's life that can be positive influences. And you know the number one reason that I've seen in various different communities that children do not have at least one positive example of a healthy, emotionally secure adult in their lives? It's because those of you who will sit there and talk about how unfair your life circumstances are, you poor, unfortunate souls, often do not make new friends either. You keep all your eggs in one basket. You only see your family, or you only see select groups of friends that you probably had since middle school or high school. You don't go out on your own. A lot of you have rushed into relationships and then you say, but I can't, they'll get jealous. You know what? Go to a fucking bookstore. Go to a bookstore where there aren't a whole bunch of people to flirt with and read. Go for a hike where you're out by yourself and walk. Look at your partner and say, you know what, honey, I recognize that you're probably going to have some weird feelings because I've been highly codependent with you. Though I also recognize that our relationship and my parenting style is not going to get much better until I start putting myself first. So, as much as it scares me and as much as your emotions do kind of worry me a little bit because this is so new, I'm going to go for that walk anyways. I'm going to go for that drive anyways. I'm going to take that class anyways. I'm going to go out and have some fun and trust myself. And I'm going to trust that as I continue to do this, you will build trust for me and that you will also go out and take care of yourself. And you know what, honey? I'm not going to manage your emotions. I'm going to be aware of your emotions. And when you are in a stable place, I will happily be interdependent with you and work on what something that works best for both of us. Though if your only concern is that you do not trust me either to not go and flirt with other people and cheat or do things that make you insecure, that is something that you need to work on for you. I could not help you with that even if I stayed here all the time. So I'm going to treat you like an adult because that is the most respectful thing to you, especially in not enabling this behavior. And I'm going to have faith that you're going to be able to do the right thing on your own because that's why I picked you. That's why I love you. And me sitting around worrying about you falling back into old habits or you being swept away by people that flirt with you as if you don't have a brain in your head because other people who were unstable in my past said it accidentally happened. Like, oops, I slipped and fell on his eggplant. Like, that's such bullshit. Oops, I lost my wedding ring. Yeah, fuck you. You know what I mean? No. No, I'm not saying accidents don't happen, but those are not accidents. No. Does not fucking happen. And the same thing with kids, you know. If you were out doing the do, it wasn't an accident. I don't care if it was planned or unplanned or whatever. You saying that having a child was an accident just shows what a shitty fucking person you are. It really, I'm just gonna lay it out. Like, if you were in a space where you were having sex and you either weren't using protection or even if you were using protection and it still happened, there was a very clear way to make sure that you did not get pregnant. It's called chastity, right? It's called being chaste. It's called putting your energy into other shit, right? It's called being a grown-ass woman or a grown-ass man. And if you did it as a teenager, when your morals maybe were not quite set and stuff, you still made that decision. And yes, you can say, I had a shitty upbringing and it was escape from my parents or my family, or it was better than people doing drugs and things like that. I've used all of these in the past too, except for the accident part. Neither of my children were ever accidents. My oldest was an unplanned surprise. But I genuinely mean that. I was never in a place, when I was pregnant with him, I was never in a place of, oh my gosh, this is an accident. I was in a place of like, okay, I'm probably going to be doing this alone. But you know what? I mean, it was a baby with a man that I love. And I knew that he probably wasn't going to be available to be there. And if he was, it was going to be a circus because he's been swimming in a ship full of pirates and sharks. And I still was like, this is fucking incredible, though. Like, I love this. If I never see him again, I get a beautiful reminder of him every day. I get this beautiful child that I get to meet and learn and try to help and guide in various different ways. And I don't know how good or bad at it I'm going to be, but I'm going to give it a try. That's genuinely how I have thought about it since my oldest son, who is now 16, going on 17 in a few months. I was say he's the best. He's a man and a woman, and I fucking love it. Something in the middle. I love it. He picks it there. He picks it there. He loves it. I love praising him for that. Like, that's fucking beautiful. He's bold and audacious and quiet and shy and yeah, and Pisces Aquarius cusp too. So like he is many things and satirizing even. Like he's a good mixture of so many things. Like, and that's a person. That's a person that I helped make. You know what I mean? And now I'm even at a place where I've been like, I can't keep taking credit for who he is or how he is. Like for a while, I can give myself credit for contributing to the person that he is, but I'm like, I gotta, like, I mean, I feel so good about the person that he is and that he's becoming despite the incredible atrocities going on around him and with his own family and in the rest of the world. He's still such an incredible fucking person. And I know that if anybody, let's take a situation like a similar one, right? If anybody was to start calling me out on shit that I actually did do, like I've been doing with the pirates in my life, including my person's first wife with their, with their daughter. If somebody was to call me out or air out my skeletons on Facebook or anything like that, I know that my kids would be like, yeah. And if they were to defend me, it certainly wouldn't be with whiny shit of like, well, they helped you or they were just afraid you were going to take the kids or no, 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 no. No, they wouldn't fucking do that. They'd be like, if it was a fair criticism, my oldest, in fact, I know it. He's done it before. He'd be like, yeah, she does that sometimes. But you know what? Nobody's perfect. Or he might be like, she did that a lot in the past. It's very rare for her to do that right now. Do you have another bit of feedback? Like, that's how he would respond. That's how he has responded to people before. And I think that that's fucking beautiful. Rather than getting dramatic, rather than acting like there's no use in holding personal accountability, he goes, no. And he doesn't blame himself. He doesn't go, well, that was my fault. No. He could see that his mom ain't perfect. And you know what? I love the fact that he feels safe giving genuine feedback and or criticism to me also. Because you know what? It proves my point, right? And there's a big difference, when you have kids that are like, they can't take accountability, they don't have self-discipline, they have a hard time controlling themselves, they eat too much, they do too much, they stay up too late. Guess what? It's because you're being an example of every motherfucking one of those things. You have no right to talk if you cannot look at yourself and say, what am I doing that's providing this example? Or if it's not you as the example, who do you have them around that's providing that example? It always comes back to the parents. Always. Always comes back to us. It doesn't mean that we're the blame of everything either. I see a lot of people that we get to this part of the conversation and they're like, but it's all my fault. I've totally screwed it up. Wow. And it's like, yeah, have those emotions. That's a healthy part of learning to own your shit. But don't let that stop you. Don't get victim-y and be like, but I've already fucked up so much. How do I get better? You start working on yourself and you get better. That's a thing. It's an option. You don't have to be in extreme places where it's like either you're like holier than thou parent who's never fucked up or a parent who, well, I already fucked up, so I'm just going to fuck up more. No, there are lots of places in the middle. Plenty of them. There's plenty of parents who did not start out as great parents and fully earned their own redemptions throughout their kids' lives. Right? And really, being in a place of complaining because you didn't have a great childhood, being in a place of like being victimized by your parents, like it's still not helpful. Think about it. Like, true or not, I am not a person to be like, your story is not true. No, your story can be true, but one, why do you choose a story where you're the victim in it? Don't you feel pretty fucking powerless when you choose stories like that? How come it can't be that you had a story where you got put into a much larger amount of contrast early on with pirates and people that were not good to you so that you could learn to be the better person than they were, right? And if you don't feel like you have a whole ton of people that are there to help you, maybe your story was intended for you to become the person that helps people. That's a lot of my story. I have people on my side, plenty of them. But you know what? None of them come from my family. None of them come from my person's family. I went out and found them by being a good person, by being the person that I wanted to have in my life. That's how I did it. That's how good people do it. You don't sit there and go, well, but I had narcissists in my family. People were pirates to me. I didn't know what to do. Yes, that may have been true for a time. But if you choose to stay in that nasty vibration, then it becomes on you, just like the people and the parents that you blame. Because what's the major criticism? My mama, my daddy never changed. Well, if you're not changing either, how are you better? How does that give you right to judge if you're not willing to make the changes that you criticize them for being unwilling to make? It's as simple as that. And The same thing if your dad or your mom wasn't there, whether by early on losing their lives or passing into the next, whatever the next is, next life, next adventure, whether they were out being a player, whether they were, your parents had a crazy, messy divorce or relationship, whatever it is. If you did not have someone who is there, you are meant to be there. If you did not have somebody who had empathy, you are meant to express empathy, including for them. If you didn't have people who understood you, you are meant to be the one who is understanding, and not in a codependent, oh, I understand you also, I'll let you treat me like shit kind of way. If you didn't have people around you who were mature and who were adult, you're the one who needs to be mature and be adult. If you didn't have people who loved you and gave you the attention, you know what my biggest challenge too is, like, I will have plenty of people that will come to me and they've been through horrible, horrible shit. Sex trafficking, cults, molestation, all sorts of shit. And you know, the biggest challenge that I see for them to overcome, one, is that they are not broken. And two, that while the people that did that to them may be living out an existence where they are acting broken, they are also not broken. They were conditioned just the same as they conditioned you. And it does no good for you to hold on to the bitterness and resentment, because you know what it does with these people when they tell me this stuff? They tell me their stories in that way. What it does is it shows that you have become like the people that you complain that broke you, by feeling like you are broken, by going, oh, but my mother or father or brother or ex were narcissistic with me. Well, anytime that you're using that word, one, unless they've got a diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder, you're being an asshole because you did not get the attention you wanted. Because 9 times out of 10, when I coach people in relationships and they tell me that their ex was actually was a narcissist and shit like that, usually that's not true. Not in a clinical setting, certainly, and even in a colloquial sense, because narcissism is often just thrown around when we feel like we're not getting the attention that we wanted from somebody. Usually, what actually happened is that we were being codependent, and we lined up with somebody who was either more immature than us or just as immature as us, and we clashed because we both had shit to learn. But then the good people will then go around and be like, well, I left if they were narcissists, like my parents. And then they start being narcissistic with everyone else, because guess how narcissistic it is to accuse other people, when you are not a psychologist, of being a narcissist. That seems to me to lack a whole lot of empathy. And yeah, you may have all of the internet's best facts. There's a song, I think it's called Bo Burnham, called Welcome to the Internet, that my son loves. It's a little racy, but I think it fits. Like, welcome to the internet. I looked up an article that told me what a narcissist is. And then most of those same people, they will go on Facebook and all these other places and criticize people who have actually done decades of research on things like vaccines or government or law or things like that, and go, you don't get it right. You're not a virologist. Or they'll say a vaccine scientist, which is not what it's fucking called. It's a virologist. And they work typically with immunologists and pathologists, right? There are actual fucking words for it. But the people that will sit there and tell you that you don't have business talking about it, no matter how much time you may have fucking put into it because you're not a professional, are usually the same people that will go, I can't get better because my parents were narcissists, or my ex was a narcissist, blah, 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 blah. I'm not saying I don't hold empathy for the trauma you've been through. Did you hear my part of the story where I got beat almost every fucking day by my sitter and others and bullies and shit because my dad was an alcoholic, so he wasn't there to protect me, and my mom was too busy being codependent with him to protect me, including from parts of her own fucking family. So I have empathy if you have been through shit. I do, but I'm not going to be the fucking person anymore who holds space for victim-y vibes, because it's not pragmatic. It doesn't fucking help, and it hurts more kids, and it hurts more adults. And guess what? When you sit in a vibe of being like, but I'm a victim, people were narcissists, when one, you don't have valid verification of that as a professional mental health counselor. So you don't have a right to say that. And if you feel like you do, you lack the empathy. You you do. You lack the empathy. Because somebody who had empathy in the way that you are criticizing that someone else does not by calling them a narcissist without an actual diagnosis, Yeah, that fits the definition of an actual narcissist, of actual narcissistic personality disorder, to lack empathy, to lack a connection with empathy. And it fits it a lot better than any internet article you may have read or any video you may have watched with somebody who seemed very trustworthy. It's the fucking internet. You know? I mean, you could take my advice or you could not. I'm not bothered if you don't because it's the fucking internet. You can learn a lot of good if you have the ability to discern things. But I would recommend that if you're in a place of feeling victimized by people from your own family and past, that you should probably spend a lot more time either going to therapy or learning about therapeutic stuff. That is one of the great values of the internet. You know how many people see will sit there and spend all their fucking time researching what kind of person that person is who is not giving them the attention that they prefer? They'll spend all that time. They'll spend all their time looking up the signs of people. They'll spend all their time trying to get tarot readings focused on what everybody else is doing wrong. But most of them don't spend any time going, what about me? What can I do to feel happier on my own? What can I do to feel whole about what happened to me as a child? What can I do to feel good about life as it is, absurd and all? You could learn about DBT. It's called dialectical behavior therapy. You could learn about cognitive behavioral therapy or the other CBT in kink. I'm not going to say the word on YouTube right now because I'd probably get dinged for it, but there are many more things you could spend your time doing. You could go and learn about, yeah, have you ever looked up what happens to water if you put a glass of water in one room and you talk nice to it every day, and you put another glass in another room and you say shitty things to it like you say to yourself and about other people all day, and then you put them under a microscope and see how they change? Same thing happens with fruit. You could spend your time doing a lot better things than sitting around going, poor me, I was victimized. I'm broke as fuck. I've been on welfare while hating taxes and stuff for most of my life. I have great empathy for poverty, for people who have been victims to racism and all sorts of shit. Like all sorts of stuff. The only thing I can't personally experience is actual racism because I'm unfortunately a part of the passing, dominant, fragile fucking culture of white people. And while I do get privileges in that I am grateful for, part of it is acknowledging that that's something I cannot experience. I also cannot experience officially what it is like to be a man as assigned at birth and to have to go through that shit. Although being androgynous, I have a very, very, very deep ability to have empathy for that. I still can't experience being an actual man with an actual eggplant, etc. So I can acknowledge that. But I can have empathy for all the different things that people go through, even if I cannot actually have that experience. Because instead of sitting around going, oh, poor me, how do I accuse somebody of hurting me? How do I tell somebody my victim-y story about how I was hurt? No, you know what I did? I spent my time going, how do I build a business? How do I heal? How do I feel better? How do I help other people feel better? How do I learn to speak a different language? How do I learn to write an article? How do I learn to write a song? What's Enneagram? I'm going to learn about my Enneagram type. And you know what's great too? When I got into learning about Enneagram, I'm so grateful for the friend that showed me that. I realized that other people process differently than I do, and other people have core motivations than I do, because while we all typically share similar core wounds, they are different depending on how people were with us. And when you start to realize, oh, gee, other people process differently, other people find safety in different things, then you start to relax because you realize that people were not hurting you on purpose most of the time, that they just process differently, and that they were not raised with such information because we didn't fucking have such information available. So they were doing the best that they could with what they knew how, as determined by their own core wounds and core motivations, as determined by the best that their parents could do with them. And you know what? Sometimes the best was the shittiest. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes the best a person could do was put a roof over your head while you got fucking abused by people all over the place. And a lot of times, people that are put through that abuse will even say, but at least I had a roof over my head. The problem is, even if that was the best that your parents could do, you need to do better. You need to do different because you are the first person who knows how shitty that is. And here's the deal. Yeah, you may have been fucked up, but do you really want to use that as your excuse to feel like you cannot change, thereby ensuring that you are going to fuck up other people because you were not brave enough to say, you know what, I'm going to think about something that feels good? Like the way that the earth smells after it's been dry for weeks and weeks, and then you get a warm summer rain. Like, how fun it is that sometimes, just the middle of nowhere on a napkin in some diner, you're going to draw a little picture. How beautiful it is that despite all the stuff that you may have been through, that you have turned your life around and you are a fun, loving, healing, even powerful person. How many kinds of colors there actually are in a rainbow if you were able to get a much closer look at it. Or the fact that, did you know, a rainbow, the reason we're able to see it, it's very odd. It is an optical illusion, but the reason we're typically able to see it is because we're at an angle that it is actually behind us. Look it up. It blew my mind, right? Think about things you've never thought of before that bring you motherfucking gratitude. You know, really. There are better things you could be doing with your time than sitting around complaining about how your parents were or how your partner was or all the beautiful, ugly excuses that people typically use to get out of growing, to get out of poverty, to get out of shitty situations, to be a part of the solutions, you know? And it definitely comes back to that integrity. Because here's the deal. You know, a lot of times they'll say, if you have a person who's bad to pets, I'm not just saying somebody who's like ADHD and they don't do well with pets, which that person, if that person keeps getting pets, yeah, they are included in this. But if they otherwise have some experiences that don't go well and realize that they're not a pet person because of those kinds of things, that's different. But I'm talking about, like, you know how they say like somebody who would mistreat or torture an animal or things like that would definitely do that to kids or adults. Well, it kind of works the same way. I don't care whether you are Doris Day in front of your kids. If the minute that they leave the room, you would look at their other parent or somebody else and talk shit about them, say that they're a burden or they're so hard or they didn't listen or they don't have self control or they created this or their other parent made this mess because they weren't there or they didn't do this thing, you lack integrity. At that point, it doesn't matter whether you said it to the kid or not. You said it. Ain't that bad enough?